Okay, let's see if this is actually working. No. Okay, let's see. Now let me check if the sound is going live. Ah, CAPTCHA. Of course I'm gonna get a CAPTCHA. Of course I have to use my phone number 17 times before I'm allowed to even exist online. Well, that's not new. What is new that is I'm bloody doing it. That's what's new. Yes, sound is on. I do not expect anyone to see this. I'm doing it for myself. I'm doing it because we have reached a stage now where it's virtually impossible to be 100% private. I have been fighting that fight even since before the internet. I have warned against giving big corporations your data since the internet got started. I specifically got really scared even back 20 years ago, like when the first, I think I had the first 3G version of iPhone, which means that when I sold the iPhone to one of my friends, I noticed that it was bloody hard for me to erase that contact list. And that contact list is still with me. I haven't used contact list managers since then. I've been setting up several tiny companies. I've been using Google Drive. I'm streaming. I'm using my Google account. It can be traced back to 2010. I know how to do all of this anonymously. I know how to, but I don't know how to keep my face and my voice and my real person anonymous any longer. And I think we're at a point in the game where either you have the resources, like gold and cash and some Bitcoin and Monero stashed away, so you can just skip all of it, or you're just mindlessly going along. Obviously, that's what most people do. Or you just need to enter the fray, enter this whole mad new world more openly. So that's what I'm doing. My background is that I've been in a mix between tech and content basically since the 80s. I did a scientific track in high school. I started coding basic in, I think it was 83 or maybe 85, but not, maybe it was 85. I didn't go online on BBSs, but I did go online. I got my own modem in 96, I think, and I got started on Linux in 98, and I published my own website that scared my friends in 98. I built my first job setting up a local network and building a very rudimentary, actually mobile first web page in 99, 2000. I got started with CMSs in 2005. I got started with virtualization. I think it was the what's it called? VMware beta version that was free for a while, for half a year. I think it was free. This was like autumn 98 or 99. I used that to tame my Windows 98 installation, where I was running PageMaker and Photoshop and these things I needed to produce desktop publishing. So I got rid of Linux. No, I got rid of Windows using Linux in '99. I got started with OS X in 2000. Most of the time I've been producing on OS X, like MacBooks. I've been using Linux on servers since these times, on and off, different types of projects and tasks. My role has always been to be this link between creating content and getting the technology done. I've done that for my tiny companies. I've done it before the internet. I've done it for myself. In 2020, I walked away from three or four companies, depending on how you define a company being legally alive and a new business contact and everything, because I realized that none of my business associates understood that the world has changed completely, permanently, and on all levels. Because what happened is that anyone who was even remotely aware, obviously what happened is that this beast machine, like this surveillance apparatus, this whole big digital gulag that's been building, the people pulling the strings for this beast were suddenly on the scene. It was all going live. And when you close down the borders between countries, and when you close down most of the world in like total fair, you're never going to get the same economy back. You're never going to get the same freedoms back. You need to grab them, obviously. You're never going to get the same economy. Never got any. Everything has changed. So I've spent a few years in mapping this out, planning for it, like honing all my own tools, honing all my own strategies, and then starting again and again. And I've started tiny companies and startups, and at the most I had these 2 active companies and like a few employees, and I had like maybe 15 people that I managed in some kind of capacity altogether. If you count like our core providers and businesses, and maybe it was a little bit more, but and in terms of salaries, people making a living, maybe it was a handful. So I've started again and again. When I started again around 10 years ago, I started one production agency for photography and video. And then I started a web development co-op because I wanted to have 2 legs. I wanted to have, my main business was the production company, but my fallback business was the web development co-op, because I wanted something that was not dependent on location and expensive gear. And I honestly thought I would have planned for absolutely everything, but how many planned, except for John McAfee maybe, so how many planned for the whole world to close down the way it did? And then I noticed one thing, because I've started again and again and again. It took longer and longer. I did keep my co-op, the web development co-op. I kept it going for a couple of years, and I had a like-minded friend who was a business partner in that venture, but when he disappeared for the 3rd time out of stress and not being able to cope, I mean just giving up on web development and the online world and the business world and everything, I had to give up. And I've been very close to recruiting, doing this thing that I've been doing before, like recruiting a partner or an associate and starting again. But then I noticed that I bail or other people bail at the last minute. And the root for this is, in so many cases, the fear that comes from knowing that everything is now surveilled and opinions are completely managed, and we are living live. This digital gulag is live. I'll never go along with it. I've spent a lot of time actually being offline. Not every day, but being offline with all of my identities that can be tracked. I've even done a trip back to Europe where I literally left no traces whatsoever except for renewing my debit cards and doing a couple of withdrawals. Other than that, it was nothing. And the funny thing is that I did that out of reflex. It was not easy, but I didn't even think about it because this is how deep I've been in privacy. So, but the time has come where, like I said, you need to have serious resources to remain private. You probably need financial reserves to spend quite a bit for quite a while until we maybe get into some future where some jurisdictions, some countries free themselves of this corporate takeover. I'm not in that category. If I was in that category, I would be useful anonymously. I need to make a living. I need to make some kind of earning. I need to make new contacts. I need to connect with people in a different way, which is why I'm finally blowing my main investments through the years, which is not using my face and voice on video, not getting out there online fully. I've been out there in terms of networking and business and setting up these companies and building this future for myself a lot in Meatspace. But I never wanted my biometrics, my natural being to be completely recorded, surveilled, and indexed by AI. But the time when this can be avoided for most people is over. So I've been very deep in privacy. This is a Cubes OS, which is a stellar privacy tool, but it's a complicated tool. Even though I've been on Linux since '98, I can manage it. It took me a few months to get into it. I've been using it for some years, and then I can't publish it. Every time I want to get something out there into the world, I'm being hampered. It takes forever. To get reach is close to impossible. All of the tools are here now, but daring is, for me, it's the only way to do is to dare to go out there, and it's complicated because I actually have to juggle around a bit with jurisdictions. I have to. This is not the digital surveillance corporate part, but a part of what I need to do is to make sure that I'm not going culturally against the jurisdictions where I reside, because that's not my intention at all, but it can be misunderstood. So we are here now at this junction. I would be doing this for my own, alone now, today. I would be doing this. If I was to do this in a fully anonymous way, I would be without the inspiration of pushing this out, without any viewers. Maybe someone's going to view it later. I'm going to send a link on my Nostr account and some of these networks where I'll be building things up, and even if maybe I've said something that can be misunderstood in these settings, well, there's something called research. So, but I'm going to use this channel, and this channel is, I bought it using crypto some years ago. It's defaulting to Hebrew of all things. The language setting, because I bought the channel. Everything is tools. The way I see it, I've just spent some time wrangling with a microphone using this old iMac is broken, and I got another old MacBook here that is most people would have discarded. Well, it's running Linux. I was testing out doing sound recordings in the command line without any GUI, and what other tools? Everything is tools. Well, I can't reach for my camera because my back is shut, but this is something I've seen across so many disciplines, which is why, well, I should actually get my camera. Because this is a tool. When I teach someone photography, or this goes back to darkroom and desktop publishing, and it goes back to the tiny, not inventions, but innovations that I did even back in the early 90s in terms of print. People tend to always forget to have a view on, to be aware, what I'm doing now, am I using a tool or is the tool using me? What tools do I need to create a tactic and a strategy to build something that is coherent within a culture? What do I want to create? I was doing this wild tour in Rhodos, and I got to talk to some people. I passed by an old Greek sitting at the table, and I literally went like freedom. That led to some interesting conversation, and I got a free drink at the restaurant because they were like, hey, who are you? Like, I was carrying these cameras, and I appeared not as a tourist, like disheveled, and the owner's like, who are you? I was like, well, what do you do? Well, I'm selling freedom, just testing out a sales script, which is a tool. Led to getting a free drink and an invitation to come back in the evening for a dinner, and that didn't quite work out because doing Greek spirits on an empty stomach doesn't work out. So this is something I see consistently through so many disciplines, that there is this, you need to get to a master level in a discipline before you understand the tools are only tools. You might want the best tools, but you shouldn't obsess about the tools. You always need to use your tools within a tactic and a strategy, and you need to be mindful about what level you are focusing on. Like if you're a carpenter, you want a good hammer. Maybe any hammer can do, but in most cases I think you probably get the good hammer. But once you got your good hammer, you're not going to think too much about it. You're just going to use it. If you're an amateur, you might start collecting hammers. And this is a tendency that is, I have to root it out in myself all of the time, together with learned helplessness, and so this is what I've been doing for the past years. There's some level of doxing here. There's some language. Fuck. I've also spent some years having no one knowing where I'm even from, or not giving any people of my passport country when traveling. And these are tactics, and these are habits that, like I mentioned, Cubes is an excellent operating system because you can compartmentalize your habits. Now I'm back in a habit, in a tool that formed habits from when I started all of these companies, and that is Google Drive. And I'm going to do something as a demonstration. I'm doing this for myself, but I'm also doing this because I know it's necessary, and I do want to provide this. We'll see to what extent I'm going to provide this. I know I'm not going to back down, that's for sure. I know I need to, and I will connect with a lot of people. So One thing I noticed when I started doing the IT startup scene in, I think this Google account is from 2010. I then noticed that I did a lot of networking. I did a lot of networking in the open source space, but also like in the outskirts of the open source space. I met a lot of smart people, and I noticed quite early on, this is 2010, 11, 12, I noticed one thing, and that is any effective company that I get to see, get a glimpse within, and anyone who's doing smart business development, who's doing good stuff, they use Google Drive and Google Docs. I did use Smartsheet for a while. I didn't want to share my data. I didn't want to step into this, but once I realized, well, I have to, I did it in an as effective way as possible. Then obviously I signed out, and I didn't get into any of this for quite a while. So I haven't been using Google Drive for a while now. So it's a good live example. I'm rather used to doing live talks like this. It doesn't faze me at all. I do enjoy teaching. I haven't been able to do this at all. Look at this. You know, this is new since I was in here. Google wants you to use some template. Well, fuck the template. Can I say that on YouTube? Is this going to be banned now? I don't even know if I can swear or say whatever I want. I know what's happened to creators in general, and I know how it felt to go from being in this digital gulag and having this tiny alarm bell being cancelled all of the time, to being on Nostra and finally being able to say whatever I want, and actually also in an anonymous way if I want. That was fun. Now I'm inside the digital gulag again, but I have my ways of getting out of it. I'm gonna combine this with probably going offline and doing recordings and posting them. I want to go live in a cave and have this guy in Nepal. I'm not kidding. This is real. I might go find some assistants and do these kind of rants and raves and whatever, sitting in a cave, being offline, using a GoPro, shipping it off and having someone publish it on my channel, because we need to have these enclaves in our mind and enclaves in the world. We need to have these timeouts in our own mind. I've been having those. I was trying to be very careful about digital dependency. One thing I did right before 2020 was to turn my screens into black and white. I glued my laptop to my desk, and then I glued my phone to the lid of my desk, of my laptop, and I only had one smartphone, one laptop that was working. I almost had it under control. Then when 2020 happened, I had to go the opposite direction to start using a lot of devices and test out all of these privacy solutions. And now I'm going the other way. I don't really care too much about being private any longer. I do care a lot about being capable of being very private. And I'm going to teach that to anyone who want to listen. So let's start with the big picture. This will be the plan for myself. It will be kind of a curriculum. It will be a kind of production plan, or whatever you call it. I call this reality stack. Oh, this keyboard is pathetic. What on earth is a reality stack? Well, like I said, most people confuse their goal with their strategy, with their tactics, with their tools. It's all messed up. That's our normal condition when we are stressed out inside of a digital gulag. So anyone watching this at all, or anyone getting even close to me, will be on the side of freedom, of messy humanity, of using your free will and not going along. So that's taken for granted. The real world, what the fuck is that? It's probably going to be another channel. Let's say that the real world outside, it's real. It's actually out there, and no, I'm not going to be a developer now. There is external reality, and that external reality was completely up in the air in 2020. What the layer that is next to the external world exists out there? What's the layer that it is interpreting, that's between the reality and our individual selves? I would say that is culture. Culture is something that is a link between the real world and how individuals in a setting experience reality. If you go back to, you can read Umberto Eco and his essay on why and how the Romans didn't discern between blue and green to the degree we do now. We can see it from the language. So they didn't. It was the same color to them. That's an example. NPCs, they have their own culture. It's just like, go along with anything you're told. That's a culture. People resisting definitely have a culture. When you go back in time and you see all the old cultures, all the old intact cultures, they have adapted to the real world and like surviving in the real world for thousands of years. And that's something, whenever you can learn from those resources, it always makes you stronger, smarter, wiser, more capable of being free and sane and using your free will. What's the next? The next level is strategies. Strategies, as an individual, you have to have a strategy. I have a strategy for being private. I have now a strategy for being public. I had a strategy for setting up a company structure and getting all of this to work, which I did. I had a visa and a work permit a few months before 2020 hit, and I had to basically kill it. I had a strategy and I planned to get to a very resilient point. I got this close. I now have a strategy to get all of these things done again. I have a strategy for traveling. I have a strategy for dealing with my physical body that is falling apart. I have a strategy with dealing with people's insanities and finding the good people and building with the right and good people. This is the strategy that's been the hardest to forge. But I'm one person. Families, especially in old intact culture, the families and clans are the ones forming the strategies, the most powerful actors in terms of building strategies and acting with strategies. A company should have a strategy. The forces that are trying to control everything and strip mind of Earth certainly have strategies. This is a scary part because I've seen this startup scene, I've seen this Silicon Valley scene, I've been in the outskirts of it for many years. It's destroyed my own home country and culture. I see it assaulting countries and cultures that I never thought it would get this far this soon. Very scary thing. So reality stack, you have a real world. The real world changed when Bitcoin was on the scene. It changes when you start using Monero and people start using Monero. It's changed when borders were sealed all over the world. You have an endless array of actors who have to build strategies that is then part of the culture, like the collapse of the West. It's the cultural collapse. It's the culture. All of these NGO people and all of these technocrats. They have their own culture, and then there's another culture that is emerging now and that is resisting. And within all of these, you have strategies. Tactics. I'm not going to say too much about tactics now because it's too close to tools. But tools and tactics goes together in this. Culture and strategy goes together in this. When you get all of those right, you also my experience is that I'm adjusting to the real world in real time when I get all of this right. So you can say that culture and strategy is close, tactics and tools is close. Anything I say, anything I try to teach anyone, anything I teach myself, anything I do, anything I think about, I try to always be aware of where am I in that stack. Of course, if I use a tool, the others are implied, and this is the thing that keeps. I haven't used the tool of Google Drive. I haven't used the tool of using this video channel. I haven't used the tool of they're just not giving a fuck any longer about my real phone number, accessing this channel with a history and getting this out there, because I've gone through all of the tactics I need to, strategies I need to adjust, and I've gone through a planning for myself, what culture I can thrive in. I've gotten through this war game of how's the real world going to change? How has the real world changed? Am I now at the point where I need to just get out there and not give a fuck any longer? Is there now a subset of people and a big culture that is a freedom movement all over the world where I can inject myself and be a nuisance or whatever and build? Yeah, we are at that point. So this is why I'm doing this. But once I use this tool, once I use the tool of being myself out in the world like this, in my previous existence, there will be like hundreds of rambles going off. Something might blow up. Something might blow up. Something will definitely blow up if I'm not being active. There's a lot of psychology in this. And the psychological part is what keeps people back. I'm not going to go into this, but a natural mind that is doesn't diminish itself a natural way of being where we are aware that there are dangers around, and we let our subconscious take care of things. Like if you're in a jungle, you know there might be predators out there, so you deal with it in a certain way, in a natural setting. Well, the online world and the world we're living now is synthetic, so it's much harder to deal with. But once you see it as an actual thing, like I'm in a jungle and there are these digital predators and there are these legal entities that might think I've done something wrong or whatever. From now on, it will be easy for me because I know I'm in the jungle. I've been trying to get out of the jungle, and well, that creates its own jungle. It's like Nietzsche and staring into the abyss. Just staring into the digital abyss. So, this is what I would always start with. You can flip the stack the other way. You can take the real world external reality away. You can, when you're in the tool space, you wouldn't think too much about the culture and but I want to have this perspective. I'll be doing different videos and I'll be spreading different types of content to be aware of this, and I'll try to demonstrate it. Okay. So now I'm flipping the stack on its head again. Let's do a list of what is my main tools and which would be the main tools that I would recommend in a holistic, abstract sense, like I'm doing now. I wonder if anyone's going to see this. I don't care. Mail tools. What is the main tool for someone who wants to be a sane, natural person on the planet who demands, takes as much freedom as possible, insists on the right to take as much freedom as possible, and has no illusions that there are no rights. There's only might, and we are up against the might of the whole internet, the whole Silicon Valley, the whole digital gulag, all of these sneaky fucks that think that they can control your speech. Category of tools. I'm going to restart this, but this is obvious. The main category of tools. It's also a culture. It's also a strategy. It's also very real. But the category of tools, all important tools, belong to this category. All important digital tools belong to this category, and that is the open source. Without open source, things would have been a million times worse. Without the fight that the encryption pioneers did in the 90s, was it 91 or 92, when the world was this close to encryption being closed source and banned. I can't remember the name of who did it. I think the Electronic Frontier Foundation was at the front of it, and I think the pivotal point was when some of these main, very known actors printed the encryption, the code for basic encryption on a T-shirt and published that and sold that in the US. protected under the First Amendment. I think that was the pivotal point when the powers that shouldn't be lost control of open source, and the most important part of open source perhaps, which was encryption technology. That's one example. Another example is, I remember in the late 80s, people making fun of the Windows people because I think there was a guy who was running Windows 3.11 or something, and I was running Macintosh, and we were both doing PageMaker. And I was making fun of him because he had like this, what do you call it? The symbol was this hourglass with sand in it, and of course the Mac had a like an analog watch symbol. People knew that there was this awareness was out there even back in the late 80s that Windows, that's commercial. That's Macintosh had a higher name, but a bit later the open source movement started, and like I said, I got started with SUSE Linux in '98. Even when your news, your source into the open source community was magazines, like Linux magazines, there was this awareness among users, and then that accelerated a lot. The next pivotal point I remember was then when the internet started growing around 98, 99. There was this debate like, oh, this Apache web server is not going to make it. Like, oh, Microsoft is going to take the internet. And this was the corporate spin. And the open source community was very, very self-assured. Like, there was this knowledge that, Apache is going to win. There was this real optimism and this push towards making Apache the web server that would serve the internet, and that happened. It was open source. Well, Apache has lost some share now, but where are we now? Like the digital gulags, the surveillance machine itself is running Linux. Most things that are served on the internet run Apache or some other open source web server solution. I'm not sure. I don't know about the percentage. It doesn't matter. Encryption. Let's start with this. Encryption is what I mentioned first. Number 2 is Linux kernel. Web servers plus. There's a lot of different tools. And this is the thing. Built on this. Ultimately, things like Bitcoin is open source. Monero is open source. Nostra is open source. So you see, if you can go back to the 80s, and you can look up to Nostra, that I think I started using Nostra 2 or 3 years ago. It's a suite of tools that belongs to the category open source that has a culture of sharing and being open, which is has the strategy of using free speech, that has built all of this technology. This is why we have any kind of sanity and freedom, of any kind of freedom movement in the world. Where would we have been without this? Microsoft would have been running all of the servers of the UK government when they're going to dim the skies and clone our cows and whatever, it would have been a complete catastrophe. And it will, if open source loses, it will be Armageddon. So there is a tiny problem here, because things like the Linux kernel is under attack. I'll put this in as a question mark. Are we at a point where a pure meritocracy is not really what is governing open source any longer? Maybe. Are we at a point where these nefarious actors that use printed fiat currency to fuel workers that are doing this DEI thing and they are surrounding these projects, is Bitcoin captured? I'm not saying that I think it is. I'm wondering about it. I'm watching it. I'm watching this too. Monero, just mentioning Monero is a set of tiny risks and huge opportunities. I'll go into Monero later. Monero is fine. Monero will be fine. Let's see, are there any more? I can't actually afford to get a Google Pixel and what's it called? Let's put privacy phones in here. Let's put privacy services. What a pathetic keyboard, or is it my fingers? Privacy services. I'm going to put an example in here. I haven't. This phone is from 2018. I'm not going to spend any money on this bullshit. But high on my list is to get just a basic eSIM device so I can use Silent.link, which is a stellar, excellent service. I'd like to interview that guy. I can easily recommend it without ever having used it. You can get a complete private phone, but buy an eSIM device, like a newer Android phone or an Apple phone, cash. Use some Monero to buy a privacy data link on Silent.link, and you're online 100% anonymously. Okay, I've forgotten. Shift tab. Oh, yep. The problem with Google Docs, the problem with all of these tools is that they are too damn effective. That's the problem. That's why I haven't been able to be myself and produce things for a few years, because I've gone hardcore the opposite direction, but here we are. Main tools. Okay. Your own meatspace location jurisdiction. It is a main tool. For me, it is a main tool. It is what I was planning and getting right and building for 5-6 years before I had to walk away from everything in 2020. It is what I'm doing now. I'm not doing anything illegal. I might appear like someone who could hack anything. No. I've always been defensive. I've done things like battling a Ukrainian hacker on behalf of a customer when the customer was hacked. He had like his password was 12546, and his code was 10 years old, and some Ukrainian hacked his old installation while I was delivering his new installation on Drupal, and so I had to deliver this. It was a fairly big job. I had to deliver this while this Ukrainian was poking around and trying to get in, and we actually got him delisted on Google after reporting it to the cybercrime police. This is 10 years ago, and he never managed to break into my site, and I got a good trial on how to build things in a secure way and how to be defensive in terms of security on behalf of my customer. I've never touched any offensive weapon because it's not the moral thing to do, I think. In almost all cases, it's not. Risk reward is wrong. Someone like me just talking about technology, you might to risk to be seen as like this ultra hacker. I had a very sleazy individual. Oh, well, I do still wish him good luck, because someone very independent who instantly thought that he could use me to, he wanted me to attack his colleagues because I mentioned, I can build any website for you, you can build any web shop. And it's like, he instantly wanted me, he instantly thought I was this super hacker and he could use me to attack his colleagues. It's like, no, that's not the way. Location jurisdiction. Some jurisdictions might totally misunderstand anything about technology, at least in an initial level. If you run into a problem, if you provoke a problem. Some location jurisdictions are like actively looking for anyone doing anything outside. Some jurisdictions, locations, are batshit insane. My own passport country is one of the worst in the NWO. Maybe I'll do some content on it, but honestly, I don't even want to talk about it because it's gotten so bad that I can't even, if I wanted to migrate back, I can't even just go online and search for jobs because I would need a digital ID to even log into the monopolistic, the actual de facto monopoly that one of the big publishing houses has on all classified ads for the country. I can't see available jobs without getting a digital ID. And at this point, I can't even get a digital ID coupled to my phone number without going back. Might I get it then? I might have to wrangle with my bank for days. I might have to. It's totally insane. Well, I've never applied for jobs anyway. I've always created my own live opportunities, like when I'm going to Greece. And if I was younger, I would have gotten a job as a bouncer for that couple running that restaurant. They had a Cuban working for them, all legal with all of the paperwork. I mean, I would love to work for a couple running a really interesting restaurant, having a Cuban as a colleague and getting to know how Greece works and what kind of opportunities I could to rebuild in a setting like that. If I was younger, I would have seized the opportunity right away. But what I've been doing for the past 20 years is to see an opportunity. It was 2 or 3 times it was in the open source community. Grab that opportunity, boost it to the max, build a network, build some attention around me, grabbing someone to become a business partner, and then just do it. I'm going to do that again. So I don't need it, but it's part of the location jurisdiction problem that goes through the whole stack. And location jurisdiction is a tool on its own. For this year, I'll spend maximum 179 days in any given country. I'll mix different rough countries that have some sanity sanity and freedom left on the ground level, so you can get this natural thing done, and you can communicate with people in a natural way, and you can present yourself in a natural way, and you can build some new future without having these leeches on your back. Okay, that is obviously another. That is obviously a separate category of tools, or it's a tool on its own. This is a document that I'm going to keep sorting. It's my master document for doing what I'm doing here. So it's going to be published at some point. It's going to be my reference point. It's my master document in my new project. So it's fine. How long have I been doing this live online with no one listening? Oh, close to an hour. Well, I thought it was longer. Open source comms. Nostr is open source communication. There is a funny thing here, because I was recruited to the single core during the Cold War, when you were 16, you were prepared to take up arms against the Soviet Union. When I was 18, I was eligible for actually taking up those arms, and I think I was sorted into the single core then, and I knew at some point I would be pulled into this, because I didn't want to be a fucking coward. That was my main reason for not resisting that. So I worked on distributed networks, phone lines, where our station could have been blown at sky high, and a telephone conversation routing through our burnt out hull of a radio station with us dead in the snow wouldn't even have been interrupted. So I saw it quite early on, and it's very hard to understate how important Nostr is. I'll obviously share this on Nostr. It's been showing some signs of decay a little bit, especially the open free speech nests on Nostr. Closed source comms and surveilled comms, which is Twitter. Scares me to start doing this on a platform like that, but I've already said this live on Google, so it's the same. And so, as a Cold War veteran, I can say this. I have a right to say this. The way that surveillance apparatus is treating people in the West, and the politicians are treating people in the West, is not viable. It's not sane. It's not resilient. It's not going to last. You can't censor everyone, and it's not. In many cases, it's not even legal according to the foundational legalities in each country. I don't view like these recent laws in my own home passport country that try to regulate your speech according to how someone else might feel about what you say. I don't regard that as legal. But these people obviously believe in their laws, like the people, like the DDR used to do back in the day. I've seen quite a bit on. Back in the 80s, I did see quite a bit of the other side because I've always been digging into anything I can. And then when I started traveling, I didn't go to see the fall of the Berlin Wall. I wanted to, but I was too young to just do things like that, like big things. This is so much part of the big picture. This is why I have this way of sorting things for myself. This is why I'm trying to plan to the end in all kind of eventualities. This is why I'm, even if no one's going to listen to this, I'm talking about these things because things have gone seriously wrong in the West, in Europe especially, and it's hard for people like people having a function in jurisdictions outside of the West where things are relatively sane still have a problem understanding how bad things are in the West. But the awareness of this is growing a little bit now. I've never had a qualm with any kind of culture in another jurisdiction out in the world. I want to belong. I can never belong. I want to be as unoffensive and as supportive of the local culture and people that I can, and I have a track record. I can almost prove it. My problem has always been the bureaucracy of the EU, the technocratic overload and the technocratic nightmare that the West has become. And I think this is the challenge that so many have, and I think this is where I can be useful with my background, my experience, my take on things, and my wild rant and super big picture thing here that's going to be sorted into smaller and more digestible chunks and pieces. And if need be, it's a hill to die on. My only hill to die on is that people need to be free to express their own culture, to be sane and practical. I can even understand that some cultures maybe haven't got the same concept of free speech as the West has legally had, but the culture of the West is still, you should be allowed to say, to have your say doesn't mean that you're going to have any power or people are going to listen. Even if you're part of an army like I was back in the day, no one would dream of silencing your speech. You might be commanded to fight for your country, but you might lose your security clearance. I had a medium security clearance. I can't remember how high. It was certainly above what most people had. As privates, there are things that I could say. I could say a couple of things to an officer, and maybe they would go, "What did you say?" And if I'd repeat it, I might lose my security clearance. There might be things like that happening. Be demoted and sent as a grunt to the actual front or whatever you call it. But no one would dream of shutting you down or Like, oh, someone was hurt. When you have one of the largest armies ever, when you're literally up against the Soviets, and it's the end of the Cold War, and you're not sure if something might happen, you're not going to worry about this stupidity. Like, ooh, someone said something about me. That someone should have any kind of legal recourse because someone said something about them was absolutely not a thing, and anyone who got even close to that, if they pushed it hard, it would be viewed as a psychiatric problem. That's it. And this is how the real world works. It's the only way that you can have a sane or free, or it's the only way you can keep having a civilization is if whatever the fuck anyone feels about what you say, that's their problem. It's no problem. It's a non-problem. So there we are. Guess I'm a free speech villain already. Okay. I'm gonna finish this. I'm gonna let it be online. I'll see if I link to it. I'll try to run it through an AI surveillance machine. I'll do it in a sandbox. I'll do a transcript for myself. I'll rename this channel probably. I might have to do another channel if I'm too bogged down by Hebrew suddenly being my default language all the time. Fun. Maybe that's a sign that everything here is literally recorded and passed through any kind of system with that language as a main operating language. Funny. I have a good picture. I have a good take on the big picture. This is why I'm feeling kind of confident about what I'm doing, and I have decided to do the location thing and the jurisdiction thing in a very serious way, so that makes everything much easier. I'll do things on that. I'm not sure how much I can do about some of these things. I'll do probably some paid streams on a tiny payment on Bitcoin Lightning and Sats and Oster and these things. I'll try to put those things because you need some kind of filter to anything that's said now. I would be totally happy to say to the audience of all of my countrymen, or yeah, it's called countrymen, or on any kind of surveilled platform because it's well thought through. But when it comes to actually dealing with the how to do things and how to forge a fortune, like a future to deal with things live, this is a central problem because many of the things you need to say might look like it's on the wrong side of all of these legalities. It's one of the main problems that needs to be solved because it's a complex area, but I'll get into some of it. I guess this is it for now. The live function has been working, and one of my intentions is to have a good workflow. I've been doing workflows back since the 80s. Like you have to have a good workflow, and my workflow is to just get things out live and then sort out the problems later. So I'm gonna end it now. I'll probably add some interesting keywords and see if it pops up in any kind of search. Yeah. Subscribe. And good luck.